What's up, guys? It's been a little while, but I think that it's time we make one more Mariners video before the season ends because I think that last night was that was it. Last night, that was the last gasp, and now we can just kind of accept the way things are going to be this season. So, Mariners lose an extra innings gut punch last night. This baseball reference page hasn't even updated for the game yet, but it doesn't really matter. You can see that things were already looking bad, and now things are obviously going to look much worse after that game, where you get a a really well pitched game. We two hit the Yankees for a lot of that game. I think we even had like a two hit game going into extras, and you can't find a way to win. I mean, it's hard to play that well against this Yankees lineup, and for you to pull that off and still lose the game, I it's hard to even though they're mathematically alive, it's hard to even bother getting excited about anything. So, there are 10 games left, and I was planning on making a Mariners video with 10 games left anyway, because that would be the home stretch. And honestly, the way the team was actually playing pretty decently for a little while there. I was hoping that I would be able to make a, 10 game to go to the end of the season video and be talking about, hey, if we sweep Houston, I think we're going to get in. I think we can win the division. We can sweep Houston. Well, now we can sweep Houston, and it probably doesn't matter. We're probably still not going to get in. And honestly, I kind of expect to sweep Houston at this point. I think we're going to do it now that it doesn't really matter if we do it or not. I kind of feel like they're going to do that. They're going to miss the playoffs by one or two games. They're really good at that. They've done it many, many times over the last 10 plus years. And I feel like that's where this is headed. I do. I feel like they're going to play good baseball over these last 10 games. I think they're going to sweep Houston. I think they're going to do well against the Rangers and the Athletics, and it's not going to be enough. It's not going to matter. Houston is 5 games ahead. So you've got a very, very small small window to squeeze in that involves Houston kind of falling on their face. Because even though I suspect the Mariners are going to play well in these last 10 games, I don't think they're going to win every game. So yeah, it's pretty much a wrap at this point. At this point, making the playoffs, the odds of that are statistically insignificant. I was holding on. Not to say that I was like invested. I was barely watching. I've barely been watching the Mariners the last few weeks, and I think most of you guys are right there with me. There hasn't been much to watch, really. And I don't mean that in the sense of the way the team is playing, because the team has actually been playing well. Dan Wilson did actually light a little bit of a fire under the offense. We did see some better things, and the team did win some big games. They did actually come up big late in some close games to put themselves in a passable position, but the Yankees are too much. And I don't really want to do chapter and verse in this video because it doesn't really matter that much. Like dissecting this lineup and dissecting these pitchers and the bullpen, which has been really, really like honestly, this lineup has some big problems. But I feel like the reason why we're here right now, even more than that, is probably the bullpen. Because you expect the bullpen to be so good, because our Mariners bullpen has been really good for years and years and years now, and they can't hold anything all of a sudden. It's been really rough. And Munoz, I think, has been playing through a little bit of an injury, but who do we have besides Munoz to lean on at all? It was supposed to be Garcia, and he's been low key a disaster. Obviously, you lose Brash, that sucks, but where are the other guys in this bullpen that can carry us a little bit through these rough periods for Munoz? The answer is nobody. So I actually kind of feel like we're going to look back on this season and be like, this is going to be the one year in the Dipoto era where the bullpen wasn't very good, and that's why we didn't make it. The lineup doesn't deserve to make the playoffs. The rotation certainly does. Starting rotation, I mean, forget about it, but I think we're going to remember this as like the one weird season where the bullpen was bad, and they win the division pretty easily if the bullpen isn't bad. So I I'm really just kind of making this video to kind of put the final nail in this season, because it's a long season. It's 6 months of straight baseball. You get occasional days off. You get the All-Star break. So trends and twists and turns get kind of forgotten as you go through, right? You don't think that much about the journey. You end up thinking about the destination. The only thing that matters is where everything ended up. So as we head towards this playoffless season, unless Minnesota decides to completely screw things up, and by the way, I'm pretty sure they own the tiebreaker, so they'd have to mess up real bad. I think that's more likely than the Houston thing at this point, sad as that is. Remember where we were a few months ago. I was at the game where they took a 10-game lead in the division. They had a 10-game lead in the division. The division looked horrible. The division is still not very good, by the way. Houston is probably going to win it with somewhere around 87, 88 wins. Probably not getting to 90, realistically. Like, that's not a good division. The team that won the World Series last year is frantically trying to gut out 500. And you can't win that division. You're getting this massive break in that your two main rivals just take a year off. Excuse me. Houston and Texas both have a down, disappointing year. You can't take advantage. And it's not just that they blew the 10-game lead. It'd be one thing if they blew a 10-game lead in like 3.5 months, where it was just a slow trickle, and then just by the end they fell behind and stuff happened, and it's like, oh well, we blew the we blew the division one little cut at a time. Then it would be like, okay, that's something that happens. We blew the division in like 3 weeks, basically. And then we've been trying to claw back into it ever since then, and just got close once or twice, but we're never able to seriously get in there. So I just want people to remember how pathetic that is, how sad that is. And obviously, they've already kind of announced that nothing's really going to change this offseason. They already fired Scott. And Dan Wilson, look, it hasn't been all bad with him, but I haven't noticed a huge difference. Not that you necessarily would in less than 25 games. I still think that it's super lame that they're just going to hand the job to Dan Wilson next year. Like, at least announce him as the interim coach and acknowledge the distinct possibility of going after a more prolific manager. Like, if you're going to make the switch, don't just shove the closest. It really just feels like they went down the list of people in the organization and just picked out a high-profile name they could throw in there so they could minimize the cost. Like, they didn't want to fire Scott anyway because of the money, but if they were going to, they weren't going to break. They're basically completely eliminating any possibility of them breaking the bank to replace him, and that's it, right? Dipoto, they're saying, is going to stay. I assume that Hollander's going to stay. I don't think anything else is changing, and while I don't hate any of those guys, I think they have done some good things. They've made enough mistakes, and they put this team in this position where the window is just about to close, to where I really would have liked to have seen something totally different. Like, how many times do we have to screw up the search for a second baseman? How many times do we have to whiff on a second baseman? Every year we bring in somebody who has been good his whole career, and then they just forget how to play baseball here, man. Polanco, honestly, as bad as he's been, and it's been bad, has been probably a little bit better than what we tried to get last year out of Colton Wong. Adam Frazier remains the gold standard, it feels like, since Cano. Like, how many times can you completely mess that up? The problems with getting anything going at third base this year. Rojas has been kind of coasting off of his early season heroics for the whole year. The fact that he's now hanging around league average as a hitter tells you how lackluster he's been because he was playing like the league MVP for like a month. How many times can you mess this up? And I know it's not really his fault, but you can't do anything about the person above him, right? John Stanton. And, Stanton's already greasing the wheels for another stupid offseason. It's all but been acknowledged that a Rosarena's gone because there's no money when there is money and we all know it. He's going to hide behind the Root Sports thing breaking up as another reason to not spend. And, it's just setting up to be another year like next year where you you skim the bottom of the ocean, try to pick up some random stuff, and plan on making some kind of a trade at the deadline and hope that that's just enough to get you over the finish line. So, I don't know what to do next year, guys. 2025 is probably the last year of the window. After 2025, if things don't go well, and by well, I mean, making a little bit of a playoff run here, at least getting in and doing some stuff, then I think almost everything is getting blown up. And I want to see what happens. But this team is just so disheartening. Watching it, knowing what they could have been if they had just been a little bit more willing to play ball, knowing what could have been if this and that and the other thing, it's really frustrating. And I know they had injuries this year. I know that part of the reason why the bullpen is bad is because of injuries. And I know that Julio got hurt and JP kept getting hurt and Polanco always gets hurt, so that's not even an excuse. But like, I'm trying to think about the next year's team because this year's over. And I'm just like, I want to see what happens, but I don't really want to watch it. Does that make any sense? All right. Rest in peace to the Mariners. See you guys later. We're moving on to football stuff, but I wanted to make one Mariners video before we actually got to the end. See you guys later.